Greetings and welcome to another video. So this time, the title of my sermon will be Little Sins and Large Calamities. So the idea is that, there's small things minor things that you just like don't pay attention to, and then they just get worse, and then they create huge problems. So even something small, like a small sin, could potentially become a huge issue and a big problem. So that's kind of the main point here. So the passage I'll be reading out of is in Joshua chapter 7. That's where I'm going to focus on. It's the story of Achan. Some of you might already know this story, but so just to give you some background of what happened. So the Jews just took over Jericho. So they just had this huge victory against Jericho, and the Lord was with them, and everything was great and amazing. So there they had this euphoria of like success, victory. They were on this high, spiritual high. The Lord's with us. Yeah, we can take down anybody. We're all, awesome. And then like right after that, that's where that's where there was a sin committed, and that's the sin I'm going to start talking about. And this is something that's very common in life. Like the Lord gives you some huge victory in life, and you're on this spiritual high, and then that is when Satan, or your flesh, is going to get you. That's when your flesh is going to get you. That's when there's like this huge fall. So when everything's going great, and and especially if you're doing something right for the Lord, everything's doing, great. That's when you have to be careful. That's when some trial or tribulation might come your way, and you won't be prepared because you're on this. You have too much confidence. You can get a little arrogant, proud, and think like, oh, I'm fine. I'll be fine. I can handle this. No, no, you can't. You can only handle it because the Lord's with you. So you have to be very careful. It doesn't matter how long you've been a Christian, how long you've been saved, uh, what your position in church is, if you're a pastor or just a regular person in church, it doesn't matter. You're still susceptible to falling. So the first passage I'm going to read is so Joshua chapter 7, verses 1 to 3. Right here, I'm going to explain what happened. So Joshua chapter 7, verses 1 through 3. But the children of Israel committed a trespass in the accursed thing. For Achan, the son of Carmi, the son of Zabdi, the son of Zerah, of the tribe of Judah, took of the accursed thing, and the anger of the Lord was kindled against the children of Israel. And Joshua sent men from Jericho to Ai, which is besides Bethaven, on the east side of Bethel, and spake unto them, saying, Go up and view the country. And the men went up and viewed Ai. And they returned to Joshua, and said unto him, Let not all the people go up, but let about 2,000 or 3,000 men go up and smite Ai, and make not all the people to labor thither, for they are but few. Okay, so there's a few things going on already. Um, so what happened was, after they conquered Jericho, um, God made some rules. He said, don't take some of this stuff. And now later, I'll what I think in the further passages it'll explain exactly what Achan took. It will explain that what did Achan actually take. And right, but he took some stuff he wasn't supposed to. God made rules like don't touch that stuff. Like some of that stuff that was in Jericho, he said don't touch it. It's not for you. And he was just testing them, like covetousness, and God's gonna test you in life. With stuff like that, like covetousness or just general life situations, and just to see what's in your heart, right? What's in your heart. And it's so easy to fall. Like just to notice throughout the history of the Jews, they're always falling. Like every time they have a huge victory, almost immediately there's this huge fall. So Achan did this. He took some stuff he wasn't supposed to. So the Lord was already kind of angry with the people of Israel. Yeah, and it was just one person. But that one person's sin, when you sin, the consequences of your actions can spread to others. They can spread to others, and other people can suffer for the things that you have done. So it was just Achan that sinned, but little did he know, or the other people, or the other Israelites, that he had already, that his sin was going to cost them dearly. He was going to cost the people of Israel. So Achan's sin was gonna spread, was gonna have, it's not just gonna affect him. Your sin doesn't just affect you; it spreads to others. Likewise, when you do good, when you're righteous, you're a good role model, and your actions can spread to others, and you can spread good. Uh, you always reap more than you sow. If you sow sin, you will reap lots of punishment. If you sow a little bit of good, you can reap a lot of good. So it's always magnified. You always end up reaping way more than you sow. So right there, Achan's already sinning. Achan did something he wasn't supposed to. He took some stuff he wasn't supposed to. So the anger of the Lord was kindled against the children of Israel. Now the children of Israel didn't know this, but I will say that the children of Israel, the other people, also committed some sins of their own. So besides Achan's sin of covetousness, the other people of Israel, they weren't, it's not like they were innocent. They also committed some sins. And this is just interesting how God works. If God wants to get a hold of people, it's not you. There's almost 8 billion people on the planet. It's never just about you. Everybody's interconnected, and something might be happening to you because God wants to use you as an example for someone else. Something might be happening to someone else, and that's an example for you. And everyone's just connected, and there could be multiple things going on at once that look like complete coincidences, and the Lord made it happen because He needs to teach lessons to a whole bunch of people at the same time. So there's all these like intricate, complex things going on all the time. We don't see this because we just have a finite mind. You can only see things from your own perspective, but from God's perspective, there's a lot going on. It's very complex, all the stuff that goes on in the world. So just trust the Lord that He does know what He's doing. So verse 2 and 3. So in verse 3 it says, "Let not all the people go up. Let just about 2,000 or 3,000 men go up and smite Ai." Now, why are they saying this? So they had this amazing victory. The Israelites had this amazing victory against Jericho. So they were overconfident. They had this amazing victory. So based on their past experience, they thought that taking over this little village compared to what they've done, this little, pebble, whatever, will be easy. So they were actually outnumbered. I think the numbers, I might mention the numbers later, but right here I have written down that they sent about 2,000 or 3,000 to fight, but I would had 12,000 people actually to fight. Now, I think that shows up in a verse later down the road, but so the Jews are actually outnumbered, so they only want to send up about 2,000 or 3,000 people, and they're going to fight against 12,000. So the Israelites, or the generals, the leaders, are confident that they could win 4-1, or even less than that, or even worse odds, like 5 or even 6-1 possibly. So the Jews are going to be outnumbered, but they're overconfident. They're like, whatever, we can take this. And if the Lord is with you, and the Lord's with you, then yes. Now, you shouldn't be overconfident, but yes, if it comes down to it, the Lord can perform a miracle and you will win against overwhelming odds. But they just lost the Lord's blessing. When you lose the Lord's blessing, that is not the time to be overconfident. You need to make sure the Lord is with you. So if the Lord's with you, then you can win against all odds, but you need to stay humble. The Jews at this point, they're not really humble. They've just had this amazing victory, so they're convinced that taking over Ai, no problem. We can send 2,000 or 3,000 people. It'll be easy. It'll be over. Overconfidence is issues. We have a war going on right now between Ukraine and Russia. And, we have a similar situation. Putin was a little overconfident. Thought, yeah, we'll take over Ukraine, no problem. Yeah, it's been almost 4 months now. Pride is never a good. It's never a good quality. It causes people to make very, very dumb decisions. So right here, the Jews are making that dumb decision. They're about to fight an enemy that outnumbers them, and they're underprepared, and they don't know it yet. They don't know it yet because they just had this amazing victory against Jericho, right? So they're like, see, with Jericho, they were listening to the Lord. They followed the Lord's directions to a T. Everything the Lord said, they did it perfectly because they needed it. When you need the Lord's blessing, you will do what the Lord says exactly the way He says it because you're like, I need the Lord's help. And the Jews understood that, and that's why they had this amazing victory against Jericho. And they were outnumbered. And the odds were against them, and they won. This is not what's going to happen here. Here it's flipped. The Jews should win. Logically speaking, the Jews should be winning this next fight, but that's not what's going to happen because they're overconfident. So stay humble. So yeah, no matter how much experience you have, you should not underestimate sin. Do not underestimate Satan. Do not underestimate the abilities of your flesh. Do not overestimate. Do not overestimate the abilities of your flesh to fight sin, because the abilities of your flesh to fight sin are virtually zero. Like they're pretty weak. Your own willpower is not going to is not going to last you very long. You need to trust in the Lord. You need to trust in the Lord no matter how long you've been saved. So anyway, the Jews underestimated their enemy. You could see that in verse 3. It also says at the end of verse 3, and make not all the people to labor thither, for they are but few. So they got lazy. That's part of it. Like, we're not going to put in our whole effort. We're going to just partially, we're not going to try our hardest because we don't need to. You should always put in the effort. It's like, yeah, I already got this. This is easy, whatever. That's a dangerous situation to be in. So that's what happens when you get lazy. You get overconfident, like, oh yeah, I've reached spiritual highs. I'm cool. I've achieved this level of spiritual greatness. No, that doesn't happen. Anyone that's any famous preacher, famous Christian pastor, whatever. They were close to the Lord. They understood that was not the case. You don't just reach some spiritual high and then just coast. It doesn't work like that. It's a lifelong battle. You put in lifelong effort to keep growing, because you could easily fall back down. You could easily go back down and lose all that progress you made over the years. The Jews underestimated their enemy. Yeah, they were outnumbered. So yeah, let me read some more verses. So I have Psalm 98, 1 and 2 written down here. So I'm going to briefly just go to that. Psalm 98, verses 1 and 2. Yeah, I don't know what happened there. Let's see, it's not. Yeah, so Psalms chapter 98. So Psalms 98, verses 1 and 2. O sing unto the Lord a new song, for he hath done marvelous things. His right hand and his holy arm hath gotten him the victory. The Lord hath made known his salvation. His righteousness hath he openly showed in the sight of the heathen. Okay, so the victory belongs to the Lord. Once you've lost the Lord's blessing and you try to do it on your own strength, it's unpredictable what can happen. The Lord might let you off the hook. You might get a victory, but that does not mean you're on the Lord's side at that point. The victory belongs to the Lord. So you need to understand that. And his righteousness has been openly shown on the side of the heathen. So the Lord will magnify his name in front of the heathen. So if you lose it, it's the Lord's victory. It's not yours. It's his. It's going to glorify him. So if he's out of the picture and you just try to do it on your own strength, best of luck. It might not end very well. And that's exactly what happened to the Jews here. So basically, you can, like I said already a few times, you cannot use past experience to try to predict the future. It doesn't always work like that. You need to make sure the Lord's with you. You're prayed up, read the Bible. Yeah, very important. So the Jews didn't notice the Lord was angry. This is an important fact. So if it goes to the Lord, then you should notice, like, hey, something's off, right? The Lord's not really with us. But they didn't notice. Once the consequences hit, then they notice. Once bad things start to happen, then you might start realizing the Lord's not with me. So sometimes God has to do that to get your attention. But not everybody immediately notices the Lord's angry and they're not with him. It takes a while. David just kept sinning. I mean, like after with Bathsheba, that went on for I don't know how many months. I think was it 9 months, 11 months? Yeah, I think it was almost a year actually that it went on that sin. And until Nathan, the prophet Nathan, pointed it out, David just kept ignoring the problem. I don't know if he felt it. Maybe he was convicted. Maybe he just completely blotted out of his mind. But for almost a year, he just completely, acted like everything was normal. And it wasn't normal. It wasn't normal, but somebody had to point it out. But David, how with the heart David had, he realized his sin and he changed. Um, that's not always the case. So anyway, what else did I want to say here? Um, so yeah, you need the Lord's eyes to see clearly. They made an awful assessment of they overestimated their abilities. That's one extreme. So you always need to be with the Lord because the Lord gives you the correct spiritual eyesight. So you see the situation, you see reality, you see the truth, the way it really is. Because if you're away from the Lord, your view of reality might get, distorted. So here, the Jews are overconfident because they don't have the Lord on their side. So they are overconfident. So they're overestimating their abilities. Whereas in the past, the previous generation, that was with Moses, that they sinned a lot. They went into they sent in 12 guys into the promised land. 10 of them said, "Oh, we're gonna lose. These dudes are giants. We're gonna lose." And then only Joshua and Caleb were like, "No, no, no. The Lord's on our side. We can do it." So you had one group. So Moses' generation, they were like the other extreme. They underestimated the Lord's abilities, and they had this spirit of fear and doubt. And that's why the Lord punished them and said, "Okay, you can wander around. If you're so scared of going to Israel, fine, stay here." And so that's one extreme. One extreme is this absolute fear and not trusting the Lord to help you. And then the other extreme is being arrogant and proud and just being overconfident. And what happens in this case is that it's not really the Lord that's on your side. You're just trying to use your own strength at that point. You're just overconfident in your own strength, but the Lord's not with you. If the Lord's with you and you're close to the Lord, then you will get an accurate picture of reality. And you might say like, hey, the odds are stacked against us, but the Lord will help us through it. Or you'll say, yeah, this is really easy. This seems like a really easy thing to handle, but I should still get the Lord on my side and get his approval for this, right? And you get an accurate picture of reality when you're with the Lord. When you're not close to the Lord, then you'll get those two extremes. Absolute fear of things you shouldn't be afraid of, and overconfidence on things that you actually probably should be a little afraid of. And you just get completely warped. A warped picture of priorities in life and everything. So you need to stick to the Lord so he keeps your brain, your mind, your being in a state of temperate. When you're temperate, you're balanced. You're not going off into the left or to the right. You're just close to the Lord. You see things the way they really are. You have calm, you have peace, and that's what you need. So anyway, yeah, that's so you want to be balanced. You want to be balanced. Don't be going off into the extremes. So yeah, that's Moses' generation. I think I'll briefly read maybe like the next verse before we get started. I don't know when I'll cut off this video. So yeah, let's read from Joshua chapter 7, verses 4 through 8. So I'm going to read from verses 4 all the way to verse 8. Verses 4 through 8 in Joshua chapter 7. So there went up thither of the people about 3,000 men, and they fled before the men of Ai. And the men of Ai smote of them about 36 men, for they chased them from the gate even unto Shebarim, and smote them in the going down. Wherefore the hearts of the people melted and became as water. And Joshua rent his clothes, and fell to the earth upon his face before the ark of the Lord until the eventide, he and the elders of Israel, and put dust upon their heads. So I'll keep reading. And Joshua said, Alas, O Lord God, wherefore hast thou at all brought this people over Jordan to deliver us into the hand of the Amorites to destroy us? Would to God we had been content and dwelt on the other side Jordan. O Lord, what shall I say when Israel turned their backs before their enemies? Yeah, so there's quite a bit to say here. So this is what I was talking about, how they had this huge fall. They had this huge, they fell. They overestimated their enemies. Let's see, wait, 3,000 only went up to fight, outnumbered at least 2 to 1. Wait, did I read the numbers wrong? Whoops. Yeah, 2 to 3,000 men, i.e. Yeah, I think I'll get the numbers right later. Wait, let's pause. Yeah, so I'm going to continue this video next time. That'll be part 2, where so I just finished my first point, where you have a great victory and a small folly. And then my next point is going to be light punishment and heavy despair. So that'll be the next video where I talk about Joshua chapter 7, verses 4 through 8. So yeah, see you next time.